So, at long last, the, shall we say, fabled bonfire of EU laws that the Brexiteers have been pushing for ever since, even before we left the EU, even before the 2016 referendum, looks like we are now going to see our first lot. And of course, what are the consequences of this going to be? Well, it's basically this. These products are now going to get shut out of the EU market, meaning that lots of these businesses are literally going to lose out on their biggest potential market right on their doorstep, that being the EU. These regulations, or should we say these deregulations that are currently being imposed, are not going to help the country because some of them are what people in the UK want. We want high standards. You know, if you look at the polls of when people get polled about regulations, overwhelmingly people in the UK are in favor of high regulations. It's just that there is a very small cabal of Tory libertarians who are desperate to get rid of these regulations because it basically means it gets to save them an extra, couple of mil a year. Other than that, that's it. It means poorer products and standards for us, and essentially a lot of businesses potentially now get locked out of the EU market, unless, of course, they follow EU rules, which ultimately many of them just are going to follow those EU rules if they want access to the market. So, and this deregulation regime, it's going to damage the UK. It's going to damage our industry. It's going to damage our economy. You name it. These deregulations are going to have far-reaching effects on the UK economy. But anyway, as we jump into today's article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So, obviously, with David Frost being reaffirmed as the Brexit minister, he was expected to give a speech today. And of course, this speech today was that, yes, there are now divergences happening. And as we have mentioned and talked about a lot about before, the second these divergences happen, the EU is going to retaliate. And that means more damage to us than it will ever be an effect to the EU. So, this comes from The Guardian. The title is Rules on GM Farming and Cars to be top of the UK bonfire of EU laws. So, rules on genetically modified farming, medical devices, and vehicle standards will be top of a bonfire of laws inherited from the EU as the government now seeks to change legislation automatically transferred to the UK after Brexit. Thousands of laws and regulations are to be reviewed, modified, repealed, under the new programme aimed at cementing the UK's independence and, quote, Brexit opportunities, David Frost has announced. Of course, these are all the fabled Brexit opportunities. Yes, let's just deregulate all these things because, yes, deregulation has never, ever had a bad consequence to it. The Brexit minister told peers that the government had, quote, a mammoth task ahead to improve or, quote, remove laws inherited through 50 years of legislative sausage machine in Brussels. In the run-up to Brexit, the UK laid down at least 960 statutory instruments to roll EU laws over into the British statute book. The government is now looking to develop a tailored mechanism for accelerating or even the repeal of the amendment of those which may concern some MPs who fear the results of rushed lawmaking. The government procurement rules, which have required contracts from national to local council to go to open tender, would also be modified, along with rules now around data and artificial intelligence, Frost told the House of Lords. And that's incredibly worrying because now, instead of the government playing fair and going to, we've got this contract to do this job, it goes out to open tender, companies apply for that tender, the government then selects from those tenders. We now then potentially have the government just going behind closed doors. We're going to give out all these jobs to our friends, which is what exactly we saw with the PPE schemes only just only just last year. So cronyism, ladies and gentlemen, is now well and truly back on the menu. The Brexit minister also announced that members of the public could contribute to the bonfire of laws. A standards commission would be established and, under visible and energetic leadership, would be able to pick up ideas from any British citizen on how to repeal or improve regulation. So basically, Frost here has just gone, okay, public, what laws do you want to get rid of? And bear in mind, if you've ever listened to James O'Brien's LBC show, the public don't know about regulations. They just don't. Frost said that now was the time to deliver the, quote, Brexit promise to, quote, unleash Britain's potential and improve growth and prosperity for everyone. Removing regulation does not do that. The move harkens back to a very long-standing pledges of successive Conservative leaders and Brexiteers to loosen the grip of EU law, including David Cameron, who promised to, quote, light a bonfire of red tape, and Nigel Lawson, who called for a massive regulatory cull. Frost promised the review and of the inherited approach of genetically modified organisms, which will include insects to soil bacteria used in farming, along with the reform of, quote, outdated EU legislation around medical devices and clinical trials. So, clinical trials regulations, super important. The EU has a massively well-approved clinical body where, guess what? Companies that want to put their drugs forward have to show their data. In the US, they don't have to show their data. So even though it, quote, might work, you may not know how effective that drug might actually be. And we've seen some over the years of some drugs in the US that are like the main prescribed drug when they've been, shall we say, shown in Europe, aren't that well as effective. So anyway, it continues, the Department of Transport would also be unveiling a new strategy to adapt EU standards for vehicles, including cars and lorries, to take advantage of, quote, new transport technologies and to ditch or even repeal EU port service regulations, which the industry says have held back small ports because of onerous rules on cargo, mooring, and ship-generated waste. Might be pretty important rules as to why we have that. Frost promised to supercharge the artificial intelligence sector with the imminent publication of a national strategy that would lead to in the AI ecosystem. In his announcement was a formal response to the initial recommendations from the Task Force of Innovation, Growth and Regulatory Reform, led by Ian Duncan Smith, one of the cheerleaders for the lighter regulation. We now have the opportunity to do these things differently and ensure that Brexit freedoms are used to help businesses and citizens get on and succeed. Again, businesses do not want this deregulation that they are asking for. Straight up. Numerous times, this has happened a couple of times. There has been a business forum where all these business leaders got together and said, oh, what regulations do you want to get rid of? Business leaders turn around, we want to get rid of none. Today's announcement is just the beginning. The government will go on with further and faster to create a very competitive, high standards regulatory environment which supports innovation and growth across the UK as we build back better from the pandemic, said Frost. Emily Thornby, the Shadow International Trade Secretary, questioned why the government was talking about Brexit opportunities while the country was facing continued shortages and staff and supplies, while exporters faced mounting losses on trade with EU and businesses in Northern Ireland were stuck in limbo. Into all that now comes along a far new Paymaster General to talk about all the new wonderful opportunities that await us because of the marvellous Brexit deal, which is working so well at present, she said. Again, this is going to be very deadly, and it's going to be very interesting, especially that procurement rule. That procurement rule is going to be used to essentially create more VIP lanes for, shall we say, more Tory chums and fellows to walk up and secure huge £100,000 contracts and then pocket all that money and then give essentially complete guff in return. So we knew this was coming sooner or later, and it looks like it's now potentially about to happen. The deregulation of the UK, and it is going to hurt. It is going to hurt British businesses and consumers and potentially even workers' rights all up and down the country. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. And of course, the One Off Nation link, Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you all next time.